Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny along with Kenny Square. Welcome back to another edition of Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, we have so much to get into today, right? It's that time of year, which we love, you know. But what we don't love is the news that we got right before we jumped on. We're about a day late, or what that we normally would do our show, and we got the word that Garrett Anderson is now passed away. And you said the only thing it says is that there was a medical emergency. But Garrett, I mean, this is shocking. And I remember I was saying he's got to be pretty young. And I think you said he was 53. Talk a little bit about that for a second.
Yeah, there's not much on it at this point, but yeah, it really does. It's unfortunate. He is the Angels leader in hits, RBIs, and runs scored. So well respected Angel.
Yeah.
I told you my biggest memory of him is the 2003 All-Star game. While he didn't have the big hit, Hank Blaylock did that against the Eric Gagne, who I think would win the Cy Young the next year.
Yeah.
Um, but Garrett Anderson had 3 hits. He played the entire game, which never happens today,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
won MVP. So
Yeah.
sorry, shout out or prayers for his
Oh,
family and
yeah.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. Such a consistently good player. Let me ask you this because I don't remember. Whole career with the Angels? Did he ever play with anybody else at the end of his career?
Uh, he might have. I'll
Might have,
see if
yeah.
I can
No,
find
don't
that
look
real
it up
quick.
now. Don't look it up now. We could catch that later. But he's known as an angel. I didn't realize he had all those records. We're certainly going to talk about that Yankee Angels series, which was just unreal this week with Mike Trout and Aaron Judge. But all right, a couple of quick things then, and still in the opening. The Detroit Pistons. Did you see this? And you probably knew this before I did. 2 years ago, I want to make sure I got it right. 2 years ago, they lost more than 60 games. Just 2 years later, they win 60 games. First time ever in NBA history. What were your thoughts?
Cade Cunningham taking a big step is huge. Bickerstaff also, I
Yeah.
think, coaching that team has helped. But man, they're a team that scares me in the East.
Yeah, yeah, we're gonna get into the playoffs, that's for sure. But I think that's just a spectacular achievement, especially when we think about, how just sports can sometimes be such a microcosm for life, right? Because we think about how we can be in a bad season in our life and then it just turns around, like that. I mean, the Pistons, this just turned around. I mean, they had a good year last year. They had a great year this year, but they're going to be scary. Um, did you know this? And you probably did, that Mason Miller has not given up a run since August 5th of last year. Now, that
Oof.
includes regular season last year. That includes, I think they made postseason last year, right? The Padres, did they? Maybe they were out. I don't quite remember, but that includes spring training. That includes the World Baseball Classic, and that includes so far here in the regular season. And so it's 30 straight innings, which doesn't sound like much, but for a relief pitcher, this guy's been unhittable. I think he's only given up like 3 hits all year long so far. I mean, and he's had 9 appearances, I think 3 hits. I mean, this guy is just spectacular.
Yeah, he's become easily, I think, the best closer in baseball.
Yeah.
Like, um, no shade to Edwin Diaz
Yeah.
or a non-gambling Emmanuel Clase, which I don't know if I can even count him as a closer anymore.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think that like he has definitely taken that mantle, and he has a chance to really have one of those like we see it every few years, like uh, Class A 24.
Yeah.
I think of Zach Britton, and I want to
Yeah.
say that was
Yeah.
2016, 2015,
Yeah.
where you have like the closer is just absolutely dominant.
Yeah.
And right now it's looking that way. And
Yeah.
the Padres have been a very pleasant surprise so far.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to talk about with the Padres in just a bit, right? Yeah, Miller, I mean, he's just been fantastic. What are you thinking of Jared Duran and him now? He gave the middle finger to one of the fans in the stands of in Minnesota, Twins fan. And the Red Sox are off to an awful start as well. We'll get to the awful teams like the Astros and the Mets and the Red Sox. But I mean, he's gotta know better at this point, no?
Yeah, I mean, he's had incidents before.
Yeah,
Um, and I understand you kind of need you need that thicker skin, and I don't think
yeah,
he's very thick skinned. But like, you could tell it's the microcosm of a bad start, where everyone is just kind of. It
frustration.
doesn't take much to get people chippy and mad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
It's frustration.
if
Yeah,
they start winning, that won't even be an issue.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the fan yells something awful, because he, talked openly about his suicide attempt, and the fan yells supposedly, why don't you go kill yourself or something like that, which he should get thrown out for that. I'm saying he, I don't know for sure if it was a guy or lady. I'm assuming it was a guy. Should get thrown out of the stadium for that, but he's even something like that. He's got to keep going. He's got to keep it moving. Um, all right, lots to get into. We're gonna start with the NBA. We're gonna talk a lot of baseball. It was a miserable, horrible week. The Mets are playing, I think, as we speak, in Chicago against the Cubs. So maybe they can turn this around. The Yankees, at least they're treading water a little bit. We got to get into Dexter Lawrence. Certainly going to talk about Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini and that whole mess that's going on there. And then some inspiration. You ready to get into it?
Let's get into it.
This episode of Sports on the Positive Tip is brought to you by the Tavern Coffee House. Attention, coffee lovers! Are you craving the perfect cup of coffee to start your day? Well, look no further than the Tavern Coffee House. It's located at 12302 Buckeye Road in Cleveland, Ohio. You can also check them out and order your coffee at thetaverncoffee.com.
Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. So, Kenny, I was at a retreat this past weekend and this past week, first couple of days of this week. And I got to, there was no television in the room, by the way, which was pretty cool, right? But I was starting to get a little antsy in the evening on Tuesday. So on my laptop, I pulled up Amazon Prime and I watched most of the Charlotte Miami Heat game. And it was an amazing game. I couldn't turn it off. Went into overtime. Kobe White, who I knew would have a moment if Charlotte made the postseason. I can't believe the Bulls traded him because he's such a clutch player and he shoots these rainbow shots. He hits this big three-pointer. Game goes into overtime. It's chippy. You right away realize this is playoff basketball. And we'll get into LaMelo in a second, and the trip that he did with Bam, but it was just an amazing, amazing game, and I kind of got to watch it in this very small room, which was great, up in Ossining, New York, and it was a lot of fun. But now we've got Charlotte, Orlando tonight, right? The Sixers are in. They get the pleasure of playing the Celtics, and those teams have met a lot of times over the years in the playoffs. And then over in the West, Portland is in. They get the pleasure of taking on the Spurs. But the Warriors go against Phoenix. I mean, the only thing sometimes that could be worse than being a Met fan is being a LA Clipper fan. I don't know.
Uh,
I'm sure you probably didn't stay up towards the end of that game, but I mean, and you got a 13-point lead in the fourth quarter, Steph Curry or not, you got to hold that, right? Especially in a do or die game. So I'll let you start. Where do you want to go with some of this play-in stuff, and what have you seen so far? And um, I mean, this has been playoff basketball.
well, I'll start with the Clippers because the Clippers losing has really big ramifications. Because I can see it. I know it's not rigged, but it is rigged. Because they lost, the Oklahoma City Thunder now have a 4% chance to get a top four pick in the draft,
Oh my gosh!
in a very deep draft.
Wow.
Like, come on. Like, I know, Steph, like, great. You might win the pleasure of getting spanked by the Thunder in the first round. but this could have bigger ramifications. This is bigger than the playoffs.
I did not know
Uh,
that. Yeah.
so I think for me, one of the bigger things is I really hope that we can see the Hornets win tonight. Um, I really want to see them pull off at least making to the playoffs. Because look, I think the play-in it has its moments because I think it's fun and exciting, and I think we saw that
Yeah.
with both of the games a couple nights ago. But at the same time, it's like all of this work to face either the Celtics, the Pistons, the Spurs, or the Thunder in the first round. And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I still think it's
Disappointing.
fun, and
Yeah.
but also like none of these teams are gonna like maybe they'll win a few games in the first round, but none of them are like not even the Pistons who like they're at full strength now with Cade back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
but I do think it was fun. Shout out to Portland too. I think Portland is one of those like it'll be a very interesting team to watch next year because you'll have a fully healthy Dame. I think they took a huge leap, which is big. But now it's like I wonder what they're going to do next year. The West is still very deep, but
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, as
Yeah.
far as like the Heat, I did watch some of the Heat Hornets game. I didn't watch in the moment the trip. There's a couple things I saw someone saying. Ironically, Bam is out in game 83 after scoring 83 points.
Putting 83. Wow.
Um, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But um, can we stop with the? Well, first, maybe this is more of a reporter issue. Can we stop asking guys like what was happening in a play that was pretty egregious? We see it all the time in baseball. Like there was a bench clearing incident, I think, with the Reds yesterday,
Yeah.
and and all the time we see it like, oh, the ball slipped away from me. I wasn't trying to hit him there. Yes, you were.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I know if you say that, you look like an awful person and you're probably getting suspended. But like we all know it. Like LaMelo Ball, you clearly took your hand and grabbed his ankle. Like I understand it probably like I think it was Chris Broussard was comparing it to when Joel Embiid grabbed Mitchell Robinson a couple years ago
Yeah.
and like kind of like
Yeah.
man hugged
Yeah.
his ankle.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's as egregious because that one I think they gave him a flagrant one.
Yeah.
Um, I think they should have did something in the moment. I've heard some people kind of say like um, because Bam was out for the game, LaMelo should have been ejected. But like you have no way of knowing in the moment. Like it wasn't like you could tell he was hurt, but you also knew like it's a do or die game, so there's a chance that he might come back. Um,
Right.
I do think assessing him a flagrant one is fine. I think suspending him for tonight's game would have been too much. And as
Yeah.
far as I know, they're not doing that. I think they just gave him a
Oh,
flagrant one.
and you got a
Um,
30-something thousand dollar fine, which is like fining URI $10, you know? Uh,
yeah, it's like, come on,
yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I did see that in person, and I understand why the refs didn't stop the game, right? Because the play was going on. It was a fast break on the other end, right? But they should have went back and looked at it, and LaMelo should have been thrown out of the game. I mean that. So what are the things that they look at now, right? Is it a basketball play, and is it egregious, right? Is it intentional? It was all of the above. Well, it wasn't a basketball play for sure to grab somebody's ankle, and there was intent on LaMelo. He can say what he wants to say. Oh, I'm going to check on him. I don't have anything against Bam. I didn't know this. That was the second time that happened with the two of them, you know?
Oh,
And
I didn't
so
know that either.
yeah, and so he should have been thrown out. And I don't think LaMelo's a dirty ball player. I don't know why he did that. You know, it was just very, very odd. It's not like they had a ton of contact beforehand. Um, but Eric Spoelstra, Hall of Fame coach, he took the high road. He said that's not why we lost. But I'm thinking, Bam, they lost by 1 point. I mean, how many points would Bam have scored had he stayed in? You know,
Right.
hey, come on. It's so. It is what it is, and now they're Orlando. I want to talk about them for a quick second because I watched most of them that game against Philly last night, the other night, not last night, the other night, um, And there's something off with Orlando. Like I know they won four more games than they did last year, but in my mind, they regress. Bancaro there's something wrong with him, man. I can't figure out that team doesn't play well together. Um, they should have handled Philly, I thought, especially without Embiid. But I mean, Philly has some really great players too. It looks like playoff P is healthy. Paul George and this kid Edgecombe is great. He's going to be an outstanding player, but he's almost like the same exact player as Tyrese Maxey. But they've got some players. I think they're going to give Boston a really tough time. But that being said, I thought Orlando should have either won that game or handled them a little bit better. It should have been a closer game. There's something off of them because Philly's defense is not that great at all. So I hope that they don't let that coach go because I think he's come a long way. Jamal Mosley, I think he's come a long way with bringing Orlando back because Orlando was a bad team for a long time. Um, but it's fun to see Charlotte, Orlando. Warriors against the Suns also tonight. I mean, this is like Steph Curry's last hurrah almost, and I shouldn't say that because who knows how long he's going to play. I mean, he's hurt all this time and he comes out and yeah, he puts them on his shoulders, for that whole fourth quarter. And obviously with that late game had to be highlights to watch. But I mean, I'm just like, this looked like Steph Curry from 10 years ago, just draining threes all over the place. Any thoughts on Warriors Phoenix tonight?
It'll be fun. I do kind of want to see the Warriors again. Would they be the first 10 seed to make it to the playoffs? Because I think they might be.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's a good question.
The other lingering story, it'll probably become a bigger story in about, well, I don't know. I don't want to just automatically eliminate the Lakers, but like whenever the Lakers are eliminated, a big story is going to be LeBron and what
Yeah.
does he do? And there's still the rumbling that maybe he could um team up with Steph in Golden State, which would be interesting. I think it would be a fun story, but
I think it's more likely he goes back and finishes. I would think he'd want to finish his career in Cleveland, right? I would think. But now, where does he fit there now, though? If James Harden is still with them, I don't know. But that would be interesting. That's been rumored for a while, right? Him and Steph teaming up. Let's get into. Well, let me say this real quick. I think Phoenix would give OKC a little bit of a tough time more than Golden State. I just think that the Warriors, Porzingis, poor guy. I mean, he's just always hurt. I know he played some the other night, right? But he's still on a minutes restriction here in the playoffs. And but I just think that Phoenix with Booker and the way that team has played and with I think that coach has done a great job with them after they, get rid of Durant, get rid of Bradley Beal. Um, it'll be fun, I think, to see them against OKC. I could see them winning at least two games against the Suns. Um, all right, so let's get into some of these other series that are set, Kenny. In the West, which one intrigues you more? Timberwolves and the Nuggets, or the Lakers and the Rockets?
Timberwolves Nuggets. We've seen that song and dance before. And every series I feel like they've played has been really intense.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know, do you want to get to some of the approval denials as far as the 65 games? Because
Talk about it. Yeah.
another guy that kind of needs to, I don't even think they need to win, but he needs to have a big showing is to kind of prove like, hey, like I kind of deserve to be part of this party too.
Yeah.
But I think the Nuggets, I think the best player in the NBA in Jokic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then also you have Jamal Murray, who I think has been really good this year.
Yeah.
And I feel like their supporting cast, which they weren't that far away from beating OKC last year. I think their supporting cast is better because like you don't have Russ, who seems to be like talking about a guy that disappeared this year. Like he was with the Kings, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So like a guy that like you have to give minutes to because you respect him versus like not having to give those minutes up. I think they're in a better spot last year. So I think the Nuggets could be an interesting team.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that series is going to be interesting. Without Luca, you might have a fun LeBron game. You might have an Austin Reeves game. But
But he's
like,
out
if the
too.
Rockets don't make, oh, that's right, he's out too. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they're done.
Yeah. You know, I wish they were at full strength because that would probably be one of the best series of this whole playoffs all the way
Oh
through.
yeah,
You know, because those teams would, if they had those two guys, they'd be so evenly matched. And then to kind of old school Durant against, LeBron kind of, but Durant is still kind of the main figure on the Rockets where, LeBron is more of a role player, although he's a great role player. I think he'll get a game or two, but I think the Rockets will relatively easily take that series, but without those two guys. Um, how about here in the East? You know, I'll ask you about Knicks Hawks in a second, and then I'm going to come back and ask you who you think the MVP is. Um, but Cavs right there, where you're at in Cleveland against the Raptors. Your thoughts there?
well, I think both of like I guess we have the 2-7 one, but both of the ones that we knew before the play-in started, I think are on paper should be pretty easy wins, but I think they could be sneaky hard. I do think the Cavs should dominate here. I found out a stat today that James Harden, who supposedly might be opting out after this year, which if that happens, I can only imagine the crash out from Cavaliers fans. Um, but
Yeah.
James Harden, he is the first player ever to make the playoffs in each of his first 17 seasons,
Oh my
and
God.
still has yet to have a ring.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Got to
but
the finals at one time, right? With OKC. Um,
yeah,
Westbrook in his prime and Durant. Yeah, wow. 17 straight years. Wow. That's crazy. Wow. Wow.
um,
So you like the Cavs big. Go ahead.
I do like the Cavs though because I think James Harden he'll have his dud games and people will crash out about it, I'm sure. But also he will put up a game where he's giving you 30, 40, somewhere in that range. And you also have Donovan Mitchell, you have Evan Mobley, you have a team that has great defense. Jared Allen is a fun player as well. Um, I think that they have a very good and well-rounded team, and they have enough to beat Toronto. The Raptors to me are one of those teams where I'm like, I know you're pretty good, but I still don't really know why. Which that might just be I'm not watching enough Raptors games
Yeah.
because like the only Raptors I can think of are Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek because I know that's not the case. Like
Yeah.
Scotty Barnes is there, other guys are there,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I know those guys aren't that good.
Yeah. The Knicks I think they played them 5 times this year, and the Knicks won all 5 games, and I think they won all the games against them last year too. Which is maybe why you kind of have the doubts about Toronto. You listen, the Cavs are certainly a better team, and I think that the Cavs have a chip on their shoulder from last year. Actually, through the last couple of years, they've had a relatively early exit, but it was more last year because they won 60 some odd games last year, where I think they were a little bit surprised. So I think the Cavs are going to come out in this first round and handle business. I think they'll win in probably 4 or 5 games. Toronto's an up and coming team for sure. Scotty Barnes, an excellent, excellent two-way player. That brings us to Knicks and the Hawks. Are you? I'm a little bit nervous. What about you?
Yes, when we started the year and we're like, yeah, I think this Knicks team can make it to the finals, which I still think is possible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh, we thought, okay, so first round matchup, probably getting a playing team or like not a great team, and you'll win in 4 or 5. I think that this can go either 6 or 7. I would lean 6. Um, I do think the Knicks can win, but also I think they are going to scare the living daylights out of them, which might be good because that means that you're not going to take the Celtics lightly, even though you beat them last year. And if you go to the Eastern Conference Finals, hopefully face the Cavs, you're like, oh, we could take the Cavs. James Harden stakes.
yeah,
Like, I think it might be good for them in the long run, but it is definitely not an easy
yeah.
first round match.
No, it's not. And I think that 6 games sounds about right to me. I think they will win. But Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson scare me. The Knicks have trouble with these young, really athletic players, and both these guys are great two-way players. I think also this coach doesn't get enough credit. I mean, look at all the years. As soon as he was gone from Utah, I mean, they've been terrible since, you know. But since he's been here, I mean, how many teams? I guess we see this sometimes, right? Where you trade your top player and you get better, and they really didn't get much in return, right? CJ McCollum, who's played great, since he's healthy and he's not that old. You think he's a lot older than he appears. I think he's like 33 or something like that, and he's playing some of the best basketball of his career. So this is a dangerous team that the Knicks, they better come out strong game one at the Garden. Take both of these games in the Garden, and then, listen, if they get one on the road, that's fine. But this is going to be a tough out. But I'm with exactly what you said. I totally agree that this will be good for the Knicks going into these next rounds. I'm very, very confident that they will get to the next round, that they'll take care of business against the Hawks, but it is going to be a touch and go series.
Yeah. And really, like, we're talking potential best series aside from like potentially obviously the finals.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking ahead and hopefully the Knicks can take care of business, the Knicks and Celtics might be that game.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. I think that seems to be where it's headed. Knicks Celtics, but we don't want to, as they say, count your chickens yet, because I think the Celtics going to have their hands full with the Sixers, because they also will struggle with these really athletic guys like Maxey and Edgecombe, and it seems like those guys have the ability to take over a game, both of them. And I don't want to discount Paul George either. And if Embiid plays, that's a big advantage that they'll have. And see, if Embiid against the Knicks, there's no advantage, right? Because you have Robinson, you have Towns. The big man on is it Queta, the big man on the Celtics, he's played well, but Embiid, even at 70, 80%, is still very, very good. So um, it's going to get fun. It's going to get fun starting Saturday, right? Today's Friday, so starting tomorrow, it's gonna get fun, right? The Knicks play tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
By the way, did you see the thing on that Mike Breen said about national television? Because this is the first year that all of the playoffs are exclusively nationally televised.
yes,
And for someone that's working at ESPN and calling some of these games,
yeah.
he was
He didn't like
highly
that.
critical.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't like that. I'm not crazy about that either, because there was one night last week, maybe, that the Knicks were on national television, and but I think it was Prime, and so Breen and Clyde was doing the game on MSG. I watched MSG. I like to watch the national games most of the time, but it's good to have the option of having the local broadcasters do it as well, because they know more about the team. Just plain and simple. I mean, Breen doing Nick games nationally, he has to play it kind of right down the middle, right? But he does know more about the Knicks. But I'm not crazy about that either. But
Yeah.
I thought that was regular season, and it wasn't. It was just for postseason. So that starts now. All right, last question in basketball, because we're gonna have a lot to talk about over these next few weeks. We'll head over to some baseball. Um, who's the MVP in your opinion?
Um, well, I'll say this to start. The 65 game rule needs to go. The whole
Yeah,
point of it was to get guys to play. But what's happening is it's just hurting the guys that actually get hurt.
yeah,
Because, like, I don't think Anthony Edwards would have come close to winning MVP. Probably would have been like second or third team All NBA. And now, and with that, usually there's money attached. And now he's not getting that because he was hurt. Um, I'm glad that they got Luka in there because Luka played 64 games. He also missed 2 games for the birth of his shot. Like, he deserved it.
yeah,
Kate is an interesting one too, but whatever. Um, Now, as far as who I would probably vote for Luca, especially seeing how the odds of the Lakers winning the title basically plummeted the second that he got hurt. I think it shows his value. but it kind of seems like everyone's leaning towards Shea, um, which I don't have a problem with. SGA is by far the best player on the best team. It just kind of makes sense. Um, but like, I feel like in terms of value, I think Luka was more valuable for a team that has been very disappointing the last several years.
Hmm.
Um, Also, honorable mention to Jokic because, like, I think he's still really good. I feel like there might be slight voter fatigue with him, but
Yeah.
also the dude did average a triple double. He's the first ever player to lead the league in assists and rebounds. Like, the guy's insane.
That's
But I
bad.
think it'll probably be SGA.
Yeah, and SGA would have no problem with that. He's the best player on the best team, right? And he's a phenomenal player. He really is. And I know what you said when I texted you this yesterday, and I know you're right. But man, the year that Jokic had, I mean, you just said it. He led the league in rebounding and assists. He's a center and he leads the league in assists. I mean, how crazy is that? Russell Westbrook was the first that we remember to average a triple double for the year, right? Oscar Robertson years ago, which I didn't even remember that. Um, but Jokic now has done it a couple of times, and then now to top it off, to lead the league in rebounding and assists. Carl Anthony Towns, I think, was second in rebounding this year. But I mean, we're just watching we've never seen this before from a center. I keep going back that he's a big man. I think he's a little under 7 feet, but I've never seen a big man pass the way he does and shoot the way he does. It's hard for me not to give it to him, but I tell you what, I have no problem with any of the top five guys. Because you can make a case for Cade Cunningham, 60 wins for Detroit. You can make a case for Anthony Edwards, probably a lighter case. But listen, Luca did everything that was expected of him with the Lakers. I mean, that team had a great year, and it's too bad he's not going to be able to see it through now with this injury. But that it is ironic. I'll say that this is what Dallas was. This is the reason why supposedly Dallas traded him, right? Because he never took care of himself and he, was injury prone. But um, I don't think this injury was because he didn't take care of himself.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't have a problem with any of them winning. But my vote, if I had a vote, I'd probably vote Doncic first. I'm sorry, the Joker first. Yeah, Jokic first, and then probably SGA, then Luca. Um, Toss up between Cade. I'd vote Cade first before Edwards. Edwards is a phenomenal talent, but what Cunningham did with that team is just incredible. It really is, and maybe we'll see them in the conference finals. But boy, oh boy, that ain't gonna be fun. Our stomach's gonna be in
Well,
every night. Yeah.
the other guy to kind of throw in there is Jalen Brown.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Because like he was a big part of why the Celtics
Yeah.
even got
Oh,
the two
absolutely.
seed.
Absolutely.
Um,
Um, all right. Going to be a lot of fun. Um, before I pull up your rankings, which I know that was difficult for you this week because there's so much movement, so much happens in baseball week to week. Can you give me a minute on ranting about the Mets here a little bit? Um, so here's
Go
what
for it.
I think here's what a lot of people might be missing, Kenny, why I'm not crazy panicked. This has been some of the worst baseball I've ever watched, by the way. I mean, it's boring. It's like, I mean, you're scoring no runs. It's shut out already like 5 or 6 times. You get swept by the Dodgers. It just was it's been uninspired baseball, but I don't think they're not trying hard, right? I think they're hustling and they're trying, but here's what I think has been the core problem that it came to me probably after they lost that second game to the Diamondbacks, right? And then they proceed to get swept by the A's and then swept by the Dodgers. Um, I don't know how many guys in that lineup are new, but it's just in that whole clubhouse, the bullpen. I mean, I should have probably had a specific number, but aside from Soto, but let's say Soto had been out, a whole outfield is new guys. Your third baseman is new. Your second baseman is new. Your first baseman is new. And you've got different pitchers. Okay, let's put that to the side because I think they signed some very good players, right? With Bichette, Simeon, of course, in the trade. Robert has been very good. But also, Ken, if you look at the bench, you've got Carlos Mendoza, and that's it. I dare you to name any other coach on the Mets because they're all new. And so you've got a whole new coaching staff. You've got, I'd say, at least three quarters new players, at least hitters and everything. Your bullpen, your eighth inning guy is new. Your closer is new. A couple of other guys are new. So in the center of this, you have Francisco Lindor, who's starting to hit, right? And he's going to hit. We know that, right? He's a great player. But, who's the leader now of this team? And so if you're saying it's Lindor, that's great. That is probably true. Is it Soto? I'm not sure that Soto wants to be a leader, right? And he's been away from the team now for almost 2 weeks, for about 2 weeks. But now, if you add the dynamic that has Lindor won the respect over of everybody to be the leader, and maybe he has because everybody knows that he is going to hit. He's going to hit 30 home runs and not getting close to 100 RBIs. He's probably hit 270, 280, 30 bases. He'll have that season still. But Ken, here's my question to you. As you look at a team that undergoes this much turnover, you lose now 8 games in a row. Now what? Who who do you run to? Who do you go to that's going to calm the waters and say, hey, let's go and get this. The Mets before had Brandon Nimmo, they had Pete Alonso, the year they had Max Scherzer. There were guys that would step up aside from just Lindor, right? Starling Marte was a big leader the last couple of years for them. So I think they're going to be okay. In fact, I know they will. I'll declare that here. But you can't dig yourself in too deep of a hole early in the season. We've seen that. You mentioned that in our preview with the Braves last year. As good as they played, they just never could get caught up to get into contention, and then the Mets could find themselves in that way early. So I'm okay right now. I'm not gonna drive off of a bridge or anything like that, and I don't mean to make light of something like that, but like a lot of Met fans are like, forget it, fire everybody, get Mendoza out of here. I think give Mendoza a chance to get all these new players to gel, get his coaching staff to gel, and let this team go through a little adversity now, because when they start to win, and I think they will, I think these guys will hit. Bo Bichette has hit his whole career. He's going to hit. Robert, when he was healthy, he hit. Simeon, I don't know. He might be well on the other side now of his career. I don't know, although I'm looking at the phone. He had a big hit already today. So anyway, that's my take. What are your thoughts? And then we'll jump into the rest of the league.
Um, I when you mentioned the very new thing, I didn't think about that, especially even from a coaching perspective. Because even a guy like Antoine Richardson,
Gone.
who's your first base coach,
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
He was big in the stolen bases.
Yep.
Also has literally one MLB highlight, but it's a big one because he scored Derek Jeter's last single.
Right.
But when I look at it, first of all, that is a good question of like, who is the leader? Because in theory, it should be Lindor. And I feel like no one really respects Lindor as the leader, which is, I think, a bigger clubhouse chemistry issue. Like, I don't like the captain thing. There's 2 captains in the league right now. Like, I know it's not a big thing, but like, if let's say Steve Cohen, you got to pick a captain today. I don't know who we would pick.
Yeah.
Like it would probably have to be Lindor.
It would have to be Lindor.
I feel like Soto kind of, it gives me like the Kevin Durant vibe where it's like, I just want to play ball.
Yeah.
I don't want to have any leadership responsibility, which
Yeah.
is fine.
Nothing
Like,
wrong
you
with
can work with that.
Yeah.
I agree. The Mets will hit again. Like, the Dodgers are really good. I know it's a huge punch to the gut when you're facing the Dodgers and you get swept.
Yeah.
Especially Devin Williams, who's been pretty good, gives up a giant grand slam, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, that game is over. Like, I
Yeah.
know those moments can be very demoralizing,
Yeah.
but like, it is still April. There's still a lot of time to turn it around. Um, but I think what's to me the most puzzling is like the biggest question on the Mets wasn't supposed to be their offense.
Right.
And for a lot of guys, it's kind of been like, well, why aren't they hitting?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
like you said, Lindor could be a 40-40 guy, but it seems like he always stinks in April, so he'll be
Yeah.
like a 30-30 guy. He's
Right.
still very good.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like when Soto gets back, he's gonna lengthen that lineup and everyone's gonna kind of probably take a deep breath a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Bichette led the league in hits last year or
Yeah.
the year before, I think, or both. Like he'll be fine.
He'll be fine.
I but the starting pitching, we had questions going in. I don't think it's been bad. I think Peralta's
Oh,
been fine. I think McLean's
yeah.
been fine.
Yeah.
The bullpen, we knew it could kind of be a hit or miss.
Yeah.
Luke Weaver has had his moments, good and bad.
Yeah.
We know Devin Williams can he can melt down pretty easily. Like we already knew that going in.
Yeah.
But I think, like you had said earlier, it can get very late, very early. Especially the NL this year, like a lot of the top teams in Major League Baseball come from the National League. And that can be a little alarming if you are in last place and you're like, oh no, we can be looking right now. They're 5 games out, which isn't big. Like we could see a 5-game deficit turnaround in a weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Or I guess not a weekend, but in like over the course of a week. Like we've seen that all the time. However, you don't want that 5 to turn into 10.
Right. Which
And
is quick.
with
Yeah.
the way the Braves are playing, with the way the Marlins are playing, like you don't want that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think the key word for me has been culture, right? Because we don't know what the Mets culture is yet. And they don't. That's what I see. Because they're sitting on the bench and they're just like looking at each other, you know? It's like, the year with, I hate to go back to 2024, but with Iglesias, JD Martinez, you knew exactly who the team was turning to, Here you don't know that yet. It should naturally be Lindor, but it's not. And I guess that's okay too. But then who's it going to be? Or is it that we're just playing well enough? We don't really need a rah-rah leader or anything like that. I hope they get to that point. But I think you got to give them time to gel together because not only do you have a bunch of new players, but you have an all new coaching staff. I don't remember that ever happening. Even when, Jeremy Hefner, he had a few managers, right? Usually there's 1 or 2 coaches that are so good that even when a new manager comes in, they retain them, But even Hefner was, now get him out of here too, So, all right. If you're good, I'm going to pull up your screen now. And you did a great job with this again this week because I know this week was hard. So go ahead, Kenny, take it away.
All right. Well, this was a really hard one. So this is the 4th week since the season started. I think this was the hardest one, especially up top. Because I don't know if you knew this. I'll just say this off the bat, and I probably have one of those teams too low. You know the division leaders right now in the American League? They are the Tampa Bay Rays, the Minnesota Twins, and I don't know if we're legally allowed to say the Sacramento A's. I know we all saw that coming, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Rough, but we're not dead yet. The Red Sox are there. We talked a little bit about them. The White Sox, Rockies, and the Giants.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Rockies fell
really
back to
hard.
earth. Yeah.
Yeah, the Rockies, you're feeling good, and then they lost 5 straight.
Yeah.
But I think the team to be most worried about, well, I think the 2 teams on the end, the teams that traded away or traded for and away a superstar,
Yeah.
the Red Sox and the Giants, I think they're the teams to kind of watch the most.
Yeah.
Because if the Red Sox have a season that they've already had and it continues, is Alex Cora gone? Because it kind of seems like he might be.
Oof.
Which that'll be very interesting. because I don't. They should be better than they are, and maybe they will be. But
Yeah.
also the Giants, it's going to feel very much like the Tony Vitello experiment was a flop,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you hate to see it.
Yeah.
Um, April anomaly? Question mark. Cubs, the Astros, the Royals, Phillies, Mariners. All of these teams, I think, had higher expectations. And like when you look at a season, um, they like most of the baseball people will say, um, you have to have two really good months and like three mediocre months and one bad month. You have the anomaly. And hopefully these five teams have their anomaly at the beginning of the year and they're just like done with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the Cubs, it's less about that they've been bad, but just how good their division has been.
Yeah.
They are a 500 team and only a couple games behind, but everyone above them, they're in last place and everyone above them is over 500. Not every division has that.
No.
Somehow the NL Central has been the hardest division early on in Major League Baseball. We would have saw that coming. Um, the Astros, I think, are a little bit more alarming than anybody else. Especially Imai, who has not looked good to start off his major league career.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
you want to
the
talk
rest of
about that
them,
for one
kind of
second?
whatever.
You want to talk about that for one
Yeah,
second? I didn't mean to interrupt. Did you see that? He's on the IL now, and he's saying it's because he's having a tough time getting adjusted to the American way of eating. It was one of the oddest things I've ever heard. I had to read it a couple of times. I'm sure they're probably hiding something else, though. Maybe they didn't do their due diligence and he's hurt. But I found that to be very interesting, especially with the amount of Japanese players that have come here and have done great. I mean, we can name them, right? But he said that he can't adjust to the American way, mostly of eating. I found that to be just remarkable.
yeah, and I know that like Americans eat too much as it is,
Oh yeah.
but like there should be somebody that helps him get adjusted.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
like there are three Japanese players on the Dodgers who have won
Yes.
two championships.
Yes.
Like it's not just Otani's here, I'm good. Like they must have a system and a process.
Yeah.
Um, so someone definitely dropped the ball there. Whether I think maybe they are hiding something, or it might be also the fake IL stints that we see with guys where uh they stink, but like, oh, your hamstring slightly hurts this one day.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll
Yeah.
be on the IL for the next month, and you'll do minor league rehab and kind of figure yourself out. But
Last quick
maybe,
thing. Last quick thing that David Sampson said that I didn't realize. I'd already read this, and then he talked about this, and he has experience obviously with Ichiro when Ichiro was with the Marlins, and he's had several Japanese players. He said that in general, because he said that Ichiro never ate. I didn't realize this. Let me say this real quick. That most players, especially most of the American players, they have dinner in the clubhouse now after the game. I know that you always heard about this after game spread. Managers like Tommy Lasorda would knock it over if the players didn't play well, but for the most part now that after game spread is now like a really full course meal that players can get. And most American players, that's where they eat and then they go home, right? It's still eating dinner late at night, right? For most teams, right? For most players. He said that the Japanese players never do that, that wasn't their routine, right? That they will either eat before, and then they skip the after meal thing, or they'll go have something light out. That they don't believe their culture doesn't believe in having a heavy meal late. Their heavy meal is usually lunchtime, and so I found that really interesting because I didn't know that. So probably Shohei doesn't partake in the you know, after game spread, which is now like a full course meal for players. Um, Instead, he opts to either not eat or go get food on his own. I thought that was really interesting. But this guy should have you'd have thought he would have known that, right? Somebody had to tell him that. I think it's an excuse. So anyway, go ahead. I'll keep quiet.
yeah, no, you're good. because yeah, someone had to have told them that they something must be going on there. On the upswing, I think these teams they might have had a bit of a rough patch in there, but I think more than anything, they're kind of you can be if you're a fan of any of these teams, you're like, okay, things are starting to look pretty good. The A's I have too low. I made this before they won two straight games again, so that's kind of where that comes from.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Baltimore, I think, is starting to turn it around.
yeah.
Detroit has won. They had a long winning streak in there. Toronto also they've kind of improved a little bit. Also the Nationals. The Nationals have kind of gotten off to not a horrible start. So
Mhm.
um, there's not much else to say there. Brutal week. I have both of our teams here. The Guardians also. I'll mention a fun fact with them in a sec. The Brewers and the Marlins too. Um, Last week they were like, "Oh wow, like we have the best record in baseball," and then haven't won a game since.
Yeah.
So the Guardians, their rookie of the year candidate, whose name Parker, what is his name? Parker Messick,
Hmm.
um, was 3 outs away from a no hitter.
Yeah.
Did not make it. They currently have the longest drought. 1981 was their last perfect game. So
Yeah. Wow.
uh, hopefully they can start to turn it around.
Yeah.
They also like some of it rough schedule, but it is what it is. Um, Pleasantly surprising. These six teams, I think you can if you're a fan of them, you're like, yeah, we got off to a great start. I mean, the Twins might be the surprise team this year. The Rays swept the Yankees. The Rays have played really well. Um, the Diamondbacks, obviously they swept the Mets, but they've gotten off to a really good start, especially
Mhm.
despite any injuries. The Angels, it was if you're an Angels fan and you say, okay, yeah, he was split against the Yankees, you look at the two games that the Angels lost. They lost one on a wild pitch, and then the other on quite the send of Austin Wells in what was such an exciting game. Both of them were for
Yeah.
thrillers. So
Yeah.
also Mike Trout showing off that he was a three-time MVP as well. It's not just Judge in the American League.
Five
Um,
homers, man. Five homers in
5 homers.
4 game series. Wow, that was amazing.
Um, First time, by the way, that in a series you had three-time MVPs facing off, and each of them hit multiple home runs.
Yeah. Amazing.
Um, Multiple home, or I think three or more home runs in a series.
Yeah. Because Judge hit four,
Also,
right, in the series?
yeah, Judge hit four.
Wow.
Um, Trout, well, they had the two-homer game in game one of the series, both of
Yeah.
them.
Hmm.
Um, that's only happened with three-time MVPs facing off. Gosh, I had it. Roy Campanella against somebody else. Oh, Stan Musial, I believe
Oh,
it
wow.
was.
Okay.
So good for them. Good also for the Cardinals and the Rangers. Little 2011 World Series rematch there.
Yeah.
Top five. Top five, I just have all National League teams because if you look at it, I think the top teams are in the National League right now. I mean, the Dodgers continue to just do what they do. Um, Got the Braves who have, I think, the second best record in. Oh no, they have the third best record because the second best record is owned by the San Diego Padres.
Yeah.
Um, who just they sold their team today $3.9 billion,
Yeah, I saw that.
which I believe is the largest sale in baseball history.
Yeah.
And Reds and Pirates, I debated on keeping one and putting the Twins up there. They're both really even. They're both up top the AL Central. I think they've been really good. So yeah, there you have it.
Yeah. No, great job. And the Padres, I think they were a little mismanaged with their current ownership group, right? And so they're getting out from under a lot of debt. I mean, they signed all those big contracts, but couldn't afford to pay them. And it might be a good news story this year in terms of the way they're playing. $3.9 billion. Wow, can't imagine. Um, all right, you did a great job with that. It is really interesting. I'll bet something that not that we're betters, right? that it won't be five National League teams at the top next week. But probably somebody's going to get hot in the American League. All right, a couple of more stories. We got to go to football. And every time I saw it, and then when I saw it yesterday, I was thinking, man, my poor son is gonna pass out here. Are you as panicked as I am? And I'm not a Giant fan. I want to see them win. I'm panicked about Dexter Lawrence in this whole situation. It almost looks like they're gonna have to trade him. What are you thinking, feeling? What are you reading about? I mean, this kind of came out of the blue.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that like he's so adamant about it, but it's feeling more and more like it's a matter of when and what you're going to get for him versus like, oh, please stay. Because it seems like every time they're talking contract, it seems to be crumbling apart. And I don't understand it. I think he's one of the best defensive tackles out there, but also, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's it's annoying because in a year in an off season where there was so much excitement,
yeah,
there was so much promise,
yeah,
like it seems like it's all going away.
yeah,
And this is becoming a bigger distraction. I
yeah.
wonder if it'll be part of a if we will be part of a like a draft day type of trade.
Maybe, maybe.
Um
Listen, he could help a lot of teams. He's still a great player. Ken, the deeper issue for me is this. We, when I say we fans, right? We expect our athletes um, to just stay in line, right? The Giants, here we go. We might have a good turning point. We've got a great coach. We've got these players that were hurt coming back. I mean, it's all lining up well for the Giants. And here you have their best defensive player saying, you guys ain't paying me. I want out. All right. And for us, our first reaction, not just specifically you and I think most fans, oh, he's selfish. He can finally be part of a winning team after all those years of losing. He's already making a lot of money. Well, listen, his timing may seem bad to us, but for him, you know what he's looking at? He's looking at his peers. He's looking at these guys that got paid this offseason and some of the guys that have gotten paid a few years before him, the Bosas and some of these guys that aren't nearly as good as him, and so he's like, okay, time out. I'm not going any further until, I get paid. And again, I think, for our point of view, from fans' point of view, we're like, really? Why now? Now you got to be like this? But for him, this has probably been brewing the last couple of years, I would guess. Um, it seems like in football, it never ends well. It seems like in football, there's usually a last minute trade. Baseball, usually you can, basketball also. I mean, look at how none of us would have thought Giannis would be still with Milwaukee, right? And not saying that that's ending well, it's not, but we would have thought he'd have been traded last summer. But football, usually, man, these guys wind up somewhere else. And I just hate that Dexter Lawrence is probably going to wind up somewhere else. At least that's what it's looking like now.
yeah, at this point I would be surprised if he's still on the team week one.
Yeah.
Because even if he doesn't show up, like I could see him holding out or whatever. So
Yeah, and you're a huge Giant fan, so for you to say that, that's big. All right, let's take a couple of minutes. We'll stay in football. And I was hesitant to talk about this story because there's not much about this story that I like at all, right? And I know you felt the same way. The whole Diana Rossini, who's a very good writer, she was a reporter on ESPN, is how we probably knew her. I don't subscribe to the Atlantic because I can't afford to be paying all this money for media and stuff like that. But I'm told the Atlantic is just phenomenal to read every day. But she still remains a great NFL reporter. Um, and then you have Mike Vrabel, who is a great coach. We talked about him a lot this year and use him as an example of how one coach, and we just, you talked about JB Bickerstaff earlier, how one coach can just turn a franchise around. And, the Patriots went just in the Super Bowl. I mean, he did an unbelievable job with a team that had 3 or 4 wins the year before. And so, uh,
yeah,
and so these two now get caught up in something, right? Now they both deny that they're having extramarital affairs. They're both married, um, and they get caught in some pictures that certainly look like they're having an affair, right? But let's put all that aside for a second because they're grown up. They got to live with their moral failures. We all have moral failures, right? But theirs now is on full display. They've got to live with that. Here's the part of the story. That part bothers me, of course, but the part that bothers me a little bit more is because Diana Rossini resigned, right, from her position. And I don't think anybody believes that she just did that of her own volition. That, I think that she probably had a couple of phone calls. They were like, listen, yeah, you probably should be stepping aside. And I think a contract was going to be up in July or something like that, I had read anyway, and that she was thinking about leaving, but they wanted to retain her until this came up. And it's been a long time now that we've had women reporters, right? But I'm old enough to remember when there were none, covering male sports. And one Susan Wallman, it's a shame to say in your lifetime, has been kind of a trailblazer. She still does play-by-play. She's been a great reporter for the Yankees for so many years. But I think women reporters still face a little something different than male reporters face. Because here's the thing that I was asking you before we came on, and I want to hear your take. Um, I doubt. I mean, we don't know this, right? This is just speculation on you and I's part, right? Because we don't know what the conversation was like between her and her bosses. But I think we can make a little bit of a conclusion what the conversation has been like between Mike Vrabel and his bosses. Probably nothing, especially since his boss is one Robert Kraft. No shade on Robert Kraft. He's been a great owner, but he also had his own moral failures that at first he tried to lie about, and then he couldn't because stuff was on video and whatever. I mean, you want to go in these massage parlors, that's on you, But I just think that there's been zero talk about, hey, does Vrabel have to step down? So the women aspect of the double standard is one thing. The other thing is the closeness. Is there, take out the sexual part, possible sexual part of a relationship, right? That they may have had. Um, there are a lot of times now that reporters are out having a drink with a coach or a player, and that's how they get their information. And there's a lot of people that have problems with that. I don't particularly don't, as long as it doesn't cross a line, right? That they become really, really good buddies, and the manager or coach of this team is giving you information that he's not giving anyone else, right? And he's only doing that because you now have become really, really good friends. So that's another issue with him and Rossini. If you take out the fact that they could be caught up in something, a little bit more salacious, right? Again, that part of the story interests me zero, and I think you felt the same way. What are your thoughts? You're still on mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think the double standard is a little jarring. Um, because you had mentioned like Jamel Hill had said like, well, what if the roles were reversed? What if like,
Yeah.
I don't know, a male reporter was talking to Caitlin Clark at like a secret hotel? Um, do you think, because like people are saying like, oh, well, what about like tampering and stuff? I think part of it isn't just the male female aspect, but also like part of the reason why I don't think Vrabel is getting anything is, well, part of it is, yeah, because he's a man and he's head coach of the Patriots who just made it to the Super Bowl. But also, like, he's in a much bigger position of power in
Yeah.
that sense,
Yeah.
which also means that he has a bigger responsibility. Um, Something, though, that kind of bothered me that I saw with her, um, well, the rumor is, no one really can confirm this. The rumor is that her husband hired a private investigator and he's the one that took the photos
Yeah. Yeah.
and was kind of torching like their relationship because I guess he probably suspected or knew.
Right.
But also, and this might be part of the when you're a female reporter in a male space, like it just kind of looks bad. But there were several clips of her talking about how she doesn't really like her husband. her husband is kind of like kind of just there. Oh, my husband doesn't mind, like kind of really trashing him in
Yeah.
ways that like make you feel a little bad for the guy.
Right. Right.
Um, so like I think from that aspect, maybe that's kind of maybe where the PI thing probably comes from. But I don't think she should have necessarily lost her job over it because, like you said, I think that people get sources about stuff all the time and in probably worse ways than we saw. That's
Yeah.
not to say that it's okay, and that's not to excuse her behavior because I think any type of like because at that point, like as a reporter, you've lost your bias. If you're sleeping with the head coach of a team, are you going to trash how awful the Patriots look on a Sunday?
No.
Like you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, from like a Patriots perspective, talk about a leak. Like
Yeah.
if something's getting out, he's not
Yeah.
going to be easy to tell her. So
That you just hit the main point I think of this story, right? Because you just said Diana Rossini as a reporter, legit reporter, is compromised, right? But this is how fair you thought this through. You just said that Mike Vrabel, also as a head coach of the Patriots, is also compromised, but it's Rossini that probably had the tough conversation. And again, we don't know, but I'm just guessing that you have not seen anything that says, "Oh, Vrabel may resign," or the Patriots are thinking about firing Mike Vrabel. You know why you're not seeing that? Because that's not going to happen. Unless something crazy comes out.
he
But
hasn't said a word. Like
yeah,
he hasn't said like, oh yeah, like even like the dumb like kind of going back to what I started with, like the okay, you're gonna try to deny it even though everyone knows exactly what's going on. Like he hasn't said anything.
no. Yeah, he doesn't have to. You think the Patriots are calling him up and saying, "Listen, Mike, we probably need to call a press conference and you need to set the record straight." No, they're not. They're not telling him that. Come on. I mean, the guy just took his team to the Super Bowl. So, and again, I'm saying it in a sarcastic way because that's wrong. He should be held to account too because you're 100% right. We like to, as fans, we like to think that look at an article that it's mostly true, right? And we know that some things are going to be written that aren't going to be true, but I think most fans are intelligent enough to decipher through stuff, right? But I think you hit it exactly right. If the Patriots start off 0-5 and Rossini is covering the Patriots, is she going to say, what is wrong with these guys? You know what I mean? Is she going to say, hey, this is the true things of what's happening in the clubhouse, why they are started off 0-5. It's contributed to their poor play on the field. She's not going to report on that because she likes Mike Vrabel too much, and that's putting it lightly, right? And it's the same. Mike Vrabel could be telling her stuff that he would never tell another reporter or tell another reporter something else. It speaks to a bigger issue than just that and I'm not downplaying if they did have an affair. They both say that they did, and that's the only thing that Vrabel has said, you know. But I also don't think, unfortunately, I choose not to say, hey, I believe or I don't believe. It's whatever, right? We all draw our own conclusions a little bit. It's hard to draw any other conclusion if you saw those pictures, right? It's really, it's really, really hard to draw another conclusion. But you say you didn't. Okay, that's fine. That's on you, and um, we know what the Bible says about that, right? And we know what our moral failure would be. Do you, Mike Vrabel or Diana Rossini, right? They're both equally wrong. But it's just that she's getting the brunt of, and she's the one who I'm going to jump to the conclusion that she had to quit, and that's not what she said, but there hasn't been nothing else on Vrabel, you know, and that's wrong. I mean, come on, you know.
Yeah, because like okay, so at this point, she's probably losing her marriage. Like I would assume. I mean, unless the guy is like, oh, I'll stay with you anyway. If she's losing her marriage, she's losing her job. So like basically, her life is crumbling apart. Vrabel, yeah, he might lose his marriage, which if his wife is like, yeah, I'm done, then obviously it's up to them. Um, but like he's not losing his job. And
No,
not to say that he should, but
no,
it,
that's
it
not what
does
we're
kind of
saying.
feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it does kind of feel like he got away with it scot free and she's kind of lost everything.
yeah,
And and I think in the end that is really wrong for her, like for that type of double standard.
yeah,
Like, and I know that like reporting is different from being like NFL personnel, but I think it's just there's a
yeah,
lot of ickiness there.
yeah. The last thing I'll say, Ken, it's I would have loved for her to defend herself and stay as a reporter and force him to fire her, right? Um, but it's very difficult. I'm sure she found it very difficult to defend, you know, because she could get up there and say, hey, this wasn't a physical relationship, right? We're just very good friends. Oh, okay. You're very good friends and you're reporting on the team. You know what I mean? So I think she probably found it almost impossible to stand up and defend, either way. And this is why I think as media expands so much, everybody has a podcast and stuff, but we never say we're insiders. We know we're not. We just talk from a fan's perspective about stuff, right? Um, but I think as all of these outlets are running to try to get the story first, you know, um, there's going to be these compromises that happen along the way, and there probably have been so many that none of us are aware of. But this one was on full display, you know.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. All right, let's wrap up with inspiration. I'll be real quick. Mine is a little different this week because my inspiration is Mark Jones. Mark Jones has been a great announcer for ESPN and ABC for a long time, 30 years. Um, and he had a show about the NBA that used to come on Saturdays before ESPN had the NBA, when NBA was still on NBC. And then I used to see him doing play-by-play on college football and stuff like that. And then he did NBA play-by-play once ABC and ESPN had it. Was usually the second team, right? It was usually him and Hubie Brown, or for a while him and Richard Jefferson, Doris Burke. He's been with this past year. But the reason why he's an inspiration because he just seems like this great guy who um, never makes it about him. Remember, didn't he do Game 7 of the NBA Finals a few years ago when Mike Breen got COVID? And it was like seamless that he stepped right in and he was great. But here's the other thing, and this is not a race thing at all. But Mark Jones, even in the 90s, 1996, and then when he became play-by-play, was one of the very, very few, and one of the first, if you can believe it or not, in the early thousands of African Americans that was doing NBA play-by-play, and then college football play-by-play, and he did it great for over 30 years with ESPN, and that had always inspired me. Every time I saw that he was on a game, I was like, as our friend Larry says, he always lets the game breathe. He doesn't overtalk. You know, he he doesn't scream. He just was always steady, but he just seemed like a really classy guy. And who knows why he was leaving after 30 years. A lot of people assume that it was another round of ESPN layoffs, like with Jeff Van Gundy and Mark Jackson a few years ago. But he never mentioned that. He just said it's time for me to move on. But I'm sure somebody's going to scoop him up because he's not crazy old. He's probably in his late 50s, early 60s. So Mark Jones, I thought a great announcer for a long time, very understated. One of the first African American play-by-play announcers, if not the first on national TV. Inspiration this week for me.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I remember because at first I was like, who is this guy? This isn't Mike Breen. But um yeah, I have it's kind of an odd one, but I thought it was kind of funny. But it also I think can be inspirational. Because I think the guy was making it more of a joke. But they said treat every week like it's a 7 game series. You just gotta win 4 of them. Um
Wow, I like that.
and and sometimes like yeah, you might sweep or gentleman sweep. So you have a 4 great days or 4 out of 5, and then you're good. But I think that is like I think he was kind of more joking than anything else. But at the same time, I think it can be important to just kind of keep it in mind. Like, yeah, sometimes you're not gonna have a 7 for 7 week. But if you got 4 out of 7, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Um, 4 out of 7 gets you to the next round in the NBA
I
playoffs.
love
So
that. I got to use
keep
that to
going.
think about that now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when I think about how my week has been so far, yeah, that's about right so far. You know. Oh, that's awesome. Who did you say said that?
I don't know. I saw it on like an Instagram
Oh,
reel.
you saw an Instagram thing. Okay. All right. I love that. I love that. All right, bud. Great show today. We knew we had a lot to talk about, so I don't know how you do it. You multitask. You're talking to the kids, and you still you don't miss a beat, man. You know that was awesome. Your preparation is just so stellar. Anyway, lots to talk about next week. By the way, Kodai Senga has pitched terrible again today. That's gonna become a big story quickly. The Mets are losing 7-3 right now to the Cubs, and 6 of those runs were given up, and he got knocked out in the third inning by Kodai. And I think he gave up 6 or 7 runs to the A's in 3 innings the other day. So that's going to become a big story here sooner rather than later. So all right, Kenny, take us home.
All right, this is Kenny Squared Ed
Kenny.
with Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next week.